everybody, and welcome to the New York Comic Con panel, The Adventure Zone graphic novel, The Crystal Kingdom. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about the incredible graphic novel that we've had so far and give you a little sneak peek of what's coming up next. Today, I have with me artist Carey Pietsch and the McElroys, Griffin, Justin, Travis, and Clint. Hi, everybody.
Hi, what a treat.
How nice for you to call my dad a boy. That's weird to hear.
But I liked it. I liked it quite a bit.
It didn't strike me as weird at all. I was just like, yeah, that
He's
tracks.
not a man.
You are all my boys in my heart.
Fair.
Yes, soft good boys. Petals, that was fantastic. I was lucky enough to get to read it while all of you when it came out. It's super incredible, but I have some questions for you about how you go about making a podcast into a visual medium. So first of all, what is the process like working with Carey to decide what stays in and what you have to excise?
Well, first we take a trip out to Joshua Tree.
Yeah.
Ingest a lot of peyote. And then we just see kind of where the mood takes us. You know, we see a lot of the panels in the sky. The characters kind of speak to us. At least that's what I do. I'm usually by myself.
Yeah. We have not, to this point, used any of Travis's Joshua Tree submissions.
Yeah.
We tend to treat them as sort of a rough springboard, a draft. Mainly Dad does it. That's the end of my inflection made it sound like there was more, but that is actually end of sentence.
We start with an outline that with every installment has become more and more in depth and more, much like the story did, more and more complicated. And then we kind of rough out, where we're going to put panels, and then Carey tells us the way it should be done. But it's basically it started off pretty much a straightforward adaptation of the podcast, getting as many jokes in as possible. So I think that the first thing we do is the outline. The second thing we do is see what jokes don't work.
Right. That's another thing. Starting with Carey, how do you decide what jokes work in a visual medium and which don't?
I feel like that really is something that we kind of figure out as we go along. I feel really lucky that Clint and Griffin and Justin and Travis are all involved at every stage of the process and not just the outline and script stage. So we have check-in points. So even at thumbs and pencils, we're still talking about, like, is this clear on the page? Is this effective? Is there a way to punch up the sound effects and have that help sell the joke a little bit better? So it really is kind of a check out your work as you go situation where I'm not always convinced that I can swing something early on in the process, but by the time we get to the end, it's like, oh, that did come together after all.
Fortunately, as most of our more critical Adventure Zone balance reviews can attest, this one doesn't have jokes in it. Just as it goes on, less jokes, more drama. By the end, there's not a joke in sight, and some people like that.
Actually, it's I've seen on Twitter a lot of people responding incredibly positively to the impactful, dramatic moments just as much as the jokes. And it is all of the graphic novels thus far have been #1 New York Times bestsellers. Just a little plug there for you guys. But what are some of the influences that you had for the graphic novel? I am a huge Fury Road fan, and I saw a little bit of that in there.
That was definitely part of the inspiration for the podcast, the arc that we adapted for Petals, was Fury Road. It was more Fast and the Furious because that was about when I was getting into Fast and the Furious, and as expected, like the way that Carey brought that to life was so fun and so cool, and like had a distinct flavor all its own that I think we were all just completely over the moon about.
I think I can't deny Fast and the Furious influence. I think the Ram wagon is specified as a Dodge Challenger at some point, and I did just use that as an excuse to buy Letty's car from Fast 5, which is the Dodge with the sweet little speed oh my God, I'm a fake Cars fan because I don't remember the go fast thing that you stick on the back of the car and it means the car goes faster. A spoiler, yes. So I still have little toy car from Fast Five somewhere.
I thought you were about to say that you used that excuse to buy a Dodge Ram for yourself to drive around town.
Very practical for Brooklyn.
Yeah, absolutely.
In Petals, we see a lot larger of a world than we've seen in the previous graphic novels and the previous podcasts. How was that to explore for the graphic novel?
I mean, if you think the world gets bigger in Petals to the Metal, boy howdy, do I have a fun new book for you called The Crystal Kingdom, in which we sort of explore the cosmology of existence. But yeah, I think that this is, I think, our biggest departure from like a D&D like story arc or setting that we had done so far. And yeah, no joke, when Crystal Kingdom is like really its own thing, and it's where it starts to sort of make the story less of like a wild fantasy tale, and adding in elements of sci-fi and stuff like that. Because when I did the podcast, I had gotten into the Alien movie franchise, and that is what inspired Crystal Kingdom, the podcast version.
Are you able to track that, Griffin, through all the arcs, where you're like, and before this arc, I started watching this movie, and before this arc, I watched this movie?
Yeah, no doubt, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
That one arc that was, the one arc that was just basically terms of endearment. Well, I have news for you.
And there was the Bridges of Madison County arc.
Yeah. Love that.
The Great
one.
British Bake Off. That was
huge.
Oh man, I'd love to do a whole TNT series. It's just GBBO. That would be
the McNeil Air News Hour period was weird. It was just four people sitting in chairs talking about the news. I hope to God it's 4 a.m. Watch that program, folks. The name's as far as I ever got.
Well, I hope someday we get to see like the movie breakdown of what inspired the podcast. But speaking of expanding the world and the Crystal Kingdom, we have a reveal of some of the interiors coming up. Yeah.
Roll that beautiful bean footage.
Is this the cover?
We have. Yeah.
Look at that.
Oh my God,
that's cool.
I don't know that I've seen
Matches
it
my
fully
aesthetic.
colored.
I haven't seen it all done.
Look at my rad Mass Effect like nano tool. That's neat.
Oh, see, I would have said Pit Boy, but
Yeah, it's Pit Boy. Yeah, that's Carey. You've outdone yourself.
It was extremely fun.
Carey, please tell us a little bit about I'm sorry, I like pink. This is
Same. I mean,
thank God.
We've talked a lot about the joys of pink book, but this is absolutely the pink book, which has been. I just started coloring just in time to get the preview pages in for today. So it's been a lot of fun to really lean into the rock candy bright fluorescent pinks, or as bright as CMYK will let you print anyway, which is a little bit limiting, but that's fine.
Now, Carey, I want to talk about is it intentional symbolism here with the D20 and Merle reaching out? Is that symbolism for my dad almost, but not quite grasping Dungeons and Dragons?
I would never say that, but I will let what you have said stand.
Wait, what?
You heard
I
me,
also
Matt.
just want to say how much that red really compliments Magnus. I think that's a great color on him.
Yeah.
I just want to say Magnus just looks terrific in this image.
Beefy.
There's a good beefy boy who I wouldn't mind cuddle with. There he is.
Merle's right up front, though. I mean, front and center, as he should be. So.
You got to put the shortest up front so people can see him.
So we can get into. We have some of the interior spreads available.
Pink!
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh man. I called dibs to talk about this one because it is the joyful pink book. But really, all I have to say is I also love pink, and it was really fun to figure out how to make the crystals look like something you kind of want to eat a little bit, like rock candy, but not too much.
This is really wild for me. We've seen these thumbnails and seen the art for a while now, but seeing it's color is such a like integral part of the arc, and I don't know why I didn't realize that it would make a huge difference seeing the actual color of all the crystal that is taking over this lab.
And look at Lucas.
Yeah.
And Griffin, for a lot of these, especially this setup, you have to like make the stakes clear right off of the bat.
Yeah, this is one of the more apocalyptic scenarios that they've faced. It's this part is also inspired by like Cat's Cradle, where if this crystallized lab touches the water below, it will sort of King Midas style turn the whole planet into a big crystal, and that would be catastrophic and bad. So we have to try and set that up. There's a lot of sort of abstract danger that is presented in this book that we had to try and take out of the abstract as much as we could.
And yes, Angus, our boy Angus is back. Justin, can you talk to us a little bit about how we kept Angus in the book?
People only actually like Angus. We are more of a conduit.
Delivery system. We are the bun.
Exactly. We're the bun of the Angus hot dog. So we wanted to make sure that he was still very present. It's a fun energy. And also what's cool about Angus is, and I don't even think we actually talked about this, but Angus is able to supplant some of the DM role, sort of some of those gaps. I think that he fills in where it was purely Griffin or DM, however he's referred to in the book. In the first couple, as Angus is introduced, he's able to fill in some of those gaps as
like
someone who's sort of like, watching over and keeping the story moving along. So Angus is definitely a part of the adventure. He's not been left behind, because no one would like that book.
We also sort of added fairly late in the game a little bit more Angus stuff than was in the podcast that I am
little bonus.
Good.
Right.
Extra Angus content that I think everybody will be excited to see. He gets a gun. He doesn't. No, I'm just saying it would be interesting if he got a gun, but he doesn't get a gun. Or does he? Next July, you'll have to find out at a bookstore. I'm calling it now. You can walk into a bookstore safely and purchase this book. That's an announcement here, exclusive.
That's
guaranteed for media
of this whole panel.
Yeah. That's a huge breaking news story I got here. The Kreskin of this of the millennials, Millennial Kreskin is what I call myself, and I'm predicting that everything will be hunky dory by the time this book comes out, not a moment earlier.
Travis, introducing a fan favorite character this way. Your thoughts on it? I mean,
well, yeah. So we talked a lot going into this. I mean, right off the bat, I think one of my favorite periods in working on a new like graphic novel is when Carey like delivers her character designs, right? And so like seeing, I mean, we got some great characters in here of like, you know, you get Maureen and Lucas and Noelle, but Kravitz, like the Kravitz drawing, I was instantly like, yes, that is Kravitz. And so it's really, man, getting introduced all the characters, but especially Kravitz in his kind of dual role as the bounty hunter and as like, you know, love interest is like such a, like, it's just so much fun to get to have him in the story. And
it's bizarre how often Carey's first crack at character designs are just like, oh, that's what I imagined. That's exactly it. You got it 100%. It's wild how in sync we all are.
And because we mentioned it about Angus, there is also, I think Kravitz probably gets the most new stuff in this book. Like, I feel like because we didn't know at the time that Kravitz was going to be as important a character as he was, because he shows up in virtually every other arc after this point.
Now, Griffin, you said the most nude stuff, right? Because I'm seeing our pre-orders they're tripling, quadrupling. No, we've broken all the pre-orders. There's no more paper.
Yeah, there is no Travis naked butt scene in this one, is there, Carey?
Yeah,
No.
We tried to.
Maybe the bonus materials. We'll see.
There may be some ifs and possibly some ands, but there are no buts.
We're professionals.
Clint, there was the decision to focus on Merle's arc for this one.
Merle is kind of goes through a crisis of faith, and we talked about it quite a bit, and it just seemed justified because, you know, it's tested, and, you know, like so many things that Merle does, he kind of fails at it, but has a great payoff, and we're kind of setting planting some seeds for future books too, but it just felt right. Merle has to grow into, you know, a decent faith, or maybe he doesn't. Buy the next book and find. Oh, I'm sorry, Justin already did that.
He goes through some stuff, and it, like,
he does go through some stuff. Yeah,
this is one of his like most notable. Like, this was a thing. I don't want to spoil it, but there is a thing that happens to Merle from Magnus that
like a present.
Yeah, that was like, I would say one of the top 5 most notable moments in the podcast.
Yeah.
Well, and it also was a very important character defining moment, not only for Merle, but I think for the relationship between Merle and Magnus.
Yeah.
One of the most wonderful things about having your home game become so huge is that you get to see these moments. Like, I mean, like growing up playing in D&D, you always are like, oh, like I wish we had a professional artist to illustrate out all of our stuff and to make real these things that we have in our imaginations and on a stacks on a piece of paper. And it's so wonderful that we get to see that all with just the visuals and the jokes that translate onto here. This is really, truly wonderful. I cannot wait to get my hands on this one.
We also get the opportunity that no one ever gets when they're playing D&D, is when the perfect thing that you should have said 5 minutes ago occurs to you. You're like, oh wait, I'll do it the joke again. I'll make it make sense. Like if we had done the graphic novel, this panel, when it got time to do the ifs, ands, or buts line, I would have cut it, put in something funny there. But you know, we're stuck with where we're at.
It's okay. This is pre-recorded. We'll fix it in post.
Perfect.
Well, this is a good time to announce that we're going to be doing a graphic novel adaptation of this panel.
Right.
So like that'll be coming out in 3 weeks. It's gonna be up in 3 weeks.
Yeah, Carey's on it.
Yeah, make sure you check that out.
Carey.
She's doing the boards for it right as we speak.
That's right. Directly below the camera.
So all the color just drop out of her face.
Well, I actually have a question for Carey, not to distract you from your boards, but I have a question for you from our community on Twitter. So from Molly MCV, are robots any easier to draw than battle wagons?
1,000% yes. Whether they are easier to color remains to be seen because I'm not done coloring the book yet. I guess it isn't a perfect experiment because we did do the Battle Wagons book first, and that means I had the chance to learn a lot about what kinds of mechanical details are fun for me to draw, which is mostly like chunky torus donut shapes. So as much as possible, I tried to just lean into like Playmobil-ish robots. I am really glad we have the in-universe reason for them to look similar, which is it's just one guy. It's just one guy making all of them. So it makes perfect sense.
Which we did on purpose, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to be technical about it, there was just one guy coming up to the robots. It came from, they were the robot, the original story came from my mind. It's all a lint, it's turtles all the way down.
And
and presumably Ridley Scott and James Cameron.
Ridley Scott, yeah.
This is also the arc in which you started getting feedback about your deep love of like, especially elevators, but injecting all of this technology into this like fantasy world. And this also does feature everyone's favorite elevator in this book, and it's horrifying.
This next question is from Allie Rambles. This is the first arc where Griffin's incredible music really starts to become an extra character in the storytelling. How were you able to capture the energy of that on the page?
Yeah, that was super weird when we were doing the podcast because I had just started to do music during Petals and immediately made the creative leap to add a Vocaloid like Hatsune Miku, who would sing and like be a character's singing voice that would like reverberate throughout the entire lab, which is a wild idea looking back, and one that was like really very difficult for us to kind of justify in this adaptation. But there is still like a sort of musical interlude of that. I mean, you can't hear it; it's a book, but of one of the verses from Crystal Kingdom is in the book.
Well, so that leads me to ask, Carey, did the music or the way that the music moved through the episodes, did that have any impact on like layout or anything like that?
For sure. I think one of the things we talked about when we were all working on Petals too was the ways that the music isn't just a character, but is also kind of setting the mood and tone that kind of establishes hopefully the way to come into a scene thinking about it. So we obviously don't have that tool set with graphic novels, but we do have the comics toolkit of things like paneling and framing and pacing to try to help elicit the same kind of moods and tone in the reader when they're going through the graphic novel. I think another thing y'all were talking about when we were first working on the outline stuff for Crystal Kingdom was how to kind of pump up the feeling of mystery in other areas that the Vocaloid song was kind of doing in the first place on the podcast. So it was really cool how that develops too.
God, I love how you have to translate and see what works best for each medium, for visual or audio or like TV. But we have one last question from...
Well, that was something that, real quick, that really helped us out in adapting this one, because there was so much information in Crystal Kingdom that we had to go through and say, like, what can we establish by someone looking at something, by showing writing on something, by seeing a facial reaction, because otherwise this book would have been like 800 pages.
Right, and having Griffin as a character and Angus to sort of like do a little bit of that overworld storytelling, just like really locks it in there. But one last question from Himbo Arsonist, which is a great name. What is the process of translating podcast-oriented action scenes into comic-centric form like? This kind of touches on what we've been talking about.
I mean, I will say one of the things especially, and I think we touched on this, we got some of the benefits of this in Petals, but especially in Crystal Kingdom. Being able to see like epic things, and I don't just mean like, that was a great punch. I mean like a giant monster versus like, you know, 3 regular sized people go like, oh no. Like being able to establish scale without just having Griffin have to say like, it's really cool, trust me. Being able to actually show it, I think heightens it in such a way that I think it's so cool to look at. And we have a couple moments with those, right? Because we have not just action scenes of like big battles, but we have like running and chase scenes and like some pretty dramatic stuff. And like Carey's take on it is just instant like gut feeling about it.
And I think the action scenes also translated pretty well, because when we played in the podcast, you know, fights took forever because you're rolling. People are explaining the rules to me. People are telling me I can't do that, but it would take a long time. So a lot of the action beats are there, and they just don't take nearly as long when you can, you know, when Carey can do her magic and condense stuff into a panel. And that made kind of a big difference for us. We could also remove any of the failures.
Yep.
So I'm sorry, you only rolled a crit 1. So.
Well, it's great because you sort of get the best of both worlds of, yes, you streamline the combat and you have it all happen sort of sequentially and as an action scene, but then also you get the sound effects like "but" or Magnus charges in, sort of that keeps that feeling of role playing.
I don't think we reused the "but" sound effect. I think it's
no. I'm saying it's so good. No, yeah, I think it's if we continue on the process, and I don't know when this stops or if it ever does, but of having, when Dad talks about removing the failures, that's not entirely true, because Magnus, Merle, and Taco, there are plenty of failures for them. Everyone else is doing great. Carey Fang Battle doing great. Kravitz doing great. Angus doing great. The 3 of us or just over there farting in our hands. I don't know what. I picture most of it.
I mean, it is, even those failures are part of the narrative of the combat. I'm so sorry, Carey, please.
Oh, no, I was just going to jump off of what Clint was saying about, and what Travis was saying about the sound effects. Tess Stone, our letterer, does such a brilliant job. And I think in the sequence that's going to go up later as part of the preview pages for the interiors, you can really see how much legwork those are doing, not just in terms of enhancing like the feeling of like, wow, this is really dramatic and cool, but also as an element on the page that you can use to kind of guide the reader's eye through a slightly frenetic fight scene, so you have a sense of like what's the flow of this action on the page itself.
And there's such good sound effects too.
It's true, they are.
The lettering also for me is it helps with like delivery, like actors deliver. Like we saw in that one panel of Magnus saying Magnus rushes out, and the way it's written, and like you can hear him saying it, and it makes me so happy.
Comics are good, actually.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, they're neat. They're like books, but with way more picture.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we're here. And that was why we were here today for the Adventure Zone graphic novel Crystal Kingdom panel. Thank you so much to everybody for joining me for this. Thank you to everybody who watched it. It's my turn to do the plug now. You can pre-order the Adventure Zone comic, Crystal Kingdom, on 7/13. Like, what is that? July 13th,
Yeah.
2021.
When everything 2020 will eventually end. Yay!
Yes. And so next year, when things are great and good, you can pre-order that graphic novel at theadventurezonecomic.com. And please also check out the Adventure Zone box set, which is on sale November 13th of this year. Like it'll tide you over until you can get those pre-orders in.
I think it's October 13th.
October 13th. Yes, I can't read dates.
It's gonna look so good on your shelf. And I know what you're saying, Travis. We already own the first three. Sure, but not in box set form.
It's got a box.
It has a box. So now you got those three that you can just leave lying around all loosey-goosey because there's nothing to contain them. And three in a box where you'll always know where they are.
And we changed 6 of the words in the books, but they're important and different. And you gotta find them, but they're big changes.
It does come with a pretty cool poster, which I did not assemble, but I did print out the proofs of the box set and put it together because it is a fun way to keep those books contained.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you to the McElroys. Thank you to Carey. Everybody, thank you so much for watching us.
Thank you to Erika.
Yeah, you're wonderful, Erika. Thank you.
I love you guys. You're all my boys. You too, Carey. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. I'm Erika Ishii, and we will see you next time.
Bye. Thank you.